Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is ESNCZ, and it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to our webinar in the series organized within Project Unity in Diversity. This project is made possible thanks to the financial support of the European Union and through the collaboration with our project partners, for example, ESN Czech Republic, as well as other organizations. I'm very excited to have you here today, and I hope this webinar brings you useful insights regarding today's topic. I would also like to highlight that this webinar is being recorded for later educational purpose. After the webinar, you will receive a feedback survey by email. Once you complete this feedback form, you will be able to receive your certificates of attendance. Please be aware that certificates of attendance will be only provided to those who are participating live today and who completed the feedback survey afterwards. Participants who only watch the recording will not receive a certificate. Today, we will dive a little bit more into general overview of what HIV virus is, the life with it, and the condition itself, and break down some of the most common stigmas in today's society. During our webinar, I will be referring to some abbreviations such as HIV or AIDS. So let's start by looking at what is meant by each of them. HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. By its name, it tells us that this is a virus that disrupts the proper functioning of the innate immune system in humans. But it's also important that we are talking about RNA virus, so it means it needs us to survive. In this aspect, his behavior is way different from DNA viruses or even bacteria. What is less commonly mentioned is that HIV can be divided into two types. The first, the HIV type 1, is the most common cause of HIV infection worldwide, responsible for over 90% of cases. The second one, HIV type 2, is predominantly found in West Africa. HIV virus aims to damage the immune system. Over time, if the infection is untreated, the virus gradually destroys immune cells faster than the body can replace them, and that leads to a weakened immune system. While I differ the HIV virus into two types, which are also associated with certain regions, this does not mean that they are confined there. As all of us know, virus does not carry a passport or has a little tiny legs. So the virus itself can spread whenever they have the opportunity. Next, let's talk about AIDS. Unfortunately, the term AIDS is sometimes used inaccurately. Not every HIV infection automatically means that the person has AIDS. AIDS stands for acute immunodeficiency syndrome, which by this name refers to a severe weakening of immune system that has been acquired. When we talk about HIV infection, this term is only relevant in the third stage of the infection itself, when certain things happened in our body. And now let's address them a little bit more, because the third stage is also the most dangerous one, because without the treatment and immune cells who cannot recognize the bad guys, there is a huge risk of a death. Therefore, it is extremely important to ensure early diagnosis and the initiation of effective treatment, which can significantly extend life and improve its quality. Before we look at prevention and what it's like to live with this condition today, it's interesting to know some of the key historical milestones that have been brought to us to the modern understanding and management of the disease. HIV was first recognized in the early 1980s, when doctors began noticing unusual cases of severe immune system failure in previously healthy individuals. Initially, the cause was unknown, and these cases were observed mostly in young men in North America and Europe, and specifically in certain social groups, which later on, as we know from the history, led to huge misinterpretation of the whole disease and the issue. During the years 1983 and 94, scientists were able to identify the virus responsible for the symptoms, which we know today as HIV. This discovery was a turning point as it allows to researchers understand how the virus attacks the immune system and how it is transmitted. As you can see here on the diagram, I mentioned three different scientists: Luc Montagna, Francois Barret, and Gilbert Gallo. During the year 83 and 84, Montagna and Barret worked in the same lab, and they were co-workers. But later on in the publication, the most credits for this discovery was signed to Montagnier. Later on, he also received the Nobel Prize for his discovery. So that's the reason why in most of the publications until these days, Montagnier is mentioned as the one who discovered the virus itself. But as right now, as we talking, we know that also a huge credit for this discovery belongs to Mrs. Bayer herself. But at the same time, another scientist was working on this case. Gilbert Gallo, an American scientist, also noticed the specific aspects of this virus. The reason why they are not connect that well is that both scientific groups uh, labeled or named the same virus under different names. During the mid 1890s, this is the first milestone for the diagnostics, because the first diagnostic test for HIV became available, making it possible to detect the infection early on. In 1996, nearly 10 years after the discovery of the virus itself, was the introduction of highly active antiretroviral therapy, known as HAART. This revolutionized the treatment, turning what was once a fatal infection into manageable chronic condition. Breaking it down to simply, it's that this treatment is a combination of HIV medicines that suppress the virus, protect the immune system, and which in the end allow people to live a long life, and it also reduces the risk of transmitting HIV to others. We are moving closer to current days, and in 2012, major breakdown in the history of HIV was for the therapy itself, because it was the introduction of PrEP, uh, known also as a pre-exposure prophylaxis, which means a prevention. In 2012, the FDA approved Truvada medication for PrEP, providing HIV-negative people at high risk with a daily pill that reduced the chance of infection by over 90% when taken correctly. What is meant by the HIV-negative person is we can imagine someone who was exposed to the virus somehow. We will later on find out how, but they were exposed, but the virus was not detected in their bloodstream. Another key breakthrough happened in 2025. Last year, Gilead Science Company announced lenacapavir, a long-lasting injectable medication for HIV prevention and treatment. Unlike daily pills, it only needs to be administered twice a year, which makes adherence much easier. This innovation and concept offers a highly effective and convenient option, helping people at risk or living with HIV maintain a protection and manage their health with far less frequent medication. Since it's still ongoing going process of the development of this medication, right now the medication is not available on the market. But before all of these remarkable discoveries happened, I would like to speak a little bit more about our past. Because one of the most remarkable stories in modern antiviral research began in 1970s. Just a little reminder, in a previous slide, I mentioned that the virus was described in 1983. So 10 years prior to the discovery, Czech chemist Professor Holly, who specialized in designing nucleotides, which are basically the amino parts of our DNA or RNA structure, synthesized chemical building blocks which were related to DNA and RNA. They were highly effective because there was slightly different from the natural DNA compounds. There were some little mistakes, which in the end could disrupt the replication process of the virus. Professor Holly initially synthesized numerous compounds, but to start, in the beginning of his testing, he started with 3 of them. These 3 molecules were sent to the biological scientist Leclerc in France for testing to see whether the approach might work against viruses. That's also why we are talking about Holy Trinity. In 1976, he met Belgian virologist Eric de Klerk, and this meeting launched a decades-long collaboration combining Professor Holly's chemistry knowledge and de Klerk's biological testing laboratory. Later on, they met with Dr. Martin, a CEO of Gilead Sciences, the same company I mentioned in a previous slide, which came up with a groundbreaking medication for HIV. Dr. Martin tried so hard to convince Professor Holly to give him his discovery and to his company. It took us numerous sessions to convince him, but in the end, his company started the development process and commercialization of the medication. But the hidden truth in this story lies in the origin purpose of Holly's molecules. Originally, these 3 molecules were meant for the antiviral therapy of herpes simplex virus. But under the urgency to find a cure for HIV, researchers started testing them. And this was the first stone set down for the upcoming treatment research. So now let's turn back to the present. We know what the virus is, where it comes from, and how long it has been with us. The true origin of the viruses and bacteria in this world is still kind unknown, and it belongs to the nature itself. So we are not very able to answer this question. But the next question is easy to break down. How might we actually come into contact with the virus? The virus can be transmitted in several ways, but all involve the transfer of certain body fluids. These includes blood, semen, vaginal and rectal secretion, breast milk, transplanted organs containing the virus. Once the virus is circulating in the body, these fluids become infectious. The most common route of transmission is unprotected sexual intercourse. Viral particles in the body fluids of the infected partner can infect another person through contact with open mucous membranes or broken skin. Why the intercourse is that effective for the transmission? Well, it is important to understand that the genital organs are highly vascularized and their mucous membranes are particularly vulnerable, which increase the likelihood of the virus entering the body. At the same time, local immune protection in these specific areas are lower than in the other parts of the body, which facilitates infection. Also, there are another important ways how to transmit the virus. One of them is blood transmission, sharing needles, syringes, transfusion, or injuries. Broadly known transmission is also through vertical transmission, which means from mother to child, despite if it's a childbirth or breastfeeding. But I would like to also highlight this information about the virus. An RNA virus isn't that smart on its own. RNA viruses relies on us, specifically on our cells, because the virus hijacked the cellular mechanism to survive and, more importantly, to replicate itself. Despite many control points in our cells designed to detect and stop the invaders, the virus is often able to evade cellular detection and exploit the replication machinery to its advantage. So a little bit more about the cells and how the virus targets them. And in the end, this is also the answer why the HIV infection or the AIDS condition is so harmful to our bodies. We've we've mentioned the blood transmission and highly vascularized organs, but what actually happens there? So when the virus enters the bloodstream, in the bloodstream there are a variety of cells of different kind and origin. But HIV specifically targets CD4 plus T cells. I know the name is very long, but to break it down, it's basically a lymphocytes that are like, for example, the police patrol of our body. This police officer recognizes something that doesn't belong there. In that moment, they grab it at, and at the same time, they send a signal to other immune cells to mobilize them against the intruder. In this way, CD4 plus cells play a central role in coordinating the immune response, alerting other cells, and helping the body fight the infection effectively. Once the virus is so, when we are in the bloodstream and the virus detect the immune cell, the CD4 plus, and is close enough to these cells, it attaches to them and enters. And inside, the virus finds the cell's genetic material, let's say genetic library, and replication machinery, exactly what it needs to be to reproduce itself. This is the virus' ultimate goal. The ultimate goal isn't the disruption of our body cells. The ultimate goal is to use the host cell to make copies of itself and continue the infectious cycle. But since we are talking about the HIV and the transmission, this is also a right moment to mention one of the most important public figures in raising awareness about people living with AIDS, the Princess Diana herself. She made a history with this photograph, which was taken in 1987, so only 4 years after the virus discovery. At the time, society was dominated by fear, stigma, and even disgust towards people living with HIV. Many believed that simple physical contact was dangerous. Through this quiet but powerful gesture, Princess Diana showed the world that human contact with people living with this condition isn't harmful. Without words, she challenged fear and misinformation and helped change public attitudes by reminding people of the importance of compassion, dignity, and understanding. And also, this is a mission all of us should take part of. So we know about the transmission. So how exactly the virus cannot be transmitted? So let's break some myth today. HIV cannot be transmitted through everyday contact. As Diana has already shown, there's no need to be afraid of showing affection through hugs, handshakes, or using public space. Then there are certain body liquids which aren't a threat as well. For example, saliva, sweat, or tears do not normally transmit HIV virus unless there's only one condition, unless they are contaminated with blood. There's also no need to worry about insects or animals as they do not act as reservoirs of the virus. Now we understand the background of the virus and its life cycle. Next question which naturally show up is how can we prevent it from affecting us in the first place? And it's only the prevention which provides us with the knowledge we need to protect ourselves effectively. Preventing HIV involves a combination of strategies that reduce the risk of infection. First and foremost, it means protecting ourselves during the most common transmission route. during sexual activity, and avoiding contact with other people's blood. As I mentioned the sexual intercourse at the first place, sometimes some radical voices claim that no sex is the best sex we can ever have. So this is another stigma we would like to also erase from modern society itself, because I strongly believe that more accurate and healthier message could something like that only protected and responsible sexual intercourse is the safest options for us. Not only to protect ourselves during these intimate moments are the things we should focus on. Testing is another essential part of prevention, and this is not only relevant for so-called high-risk groups, but for anyone who may find themselves in a risky situation at some point in their life. Many can believe that this situation will never happen to them. So let's use our imagination for a little bit more and draw specific situation that we might suddenly find ourselves in, even without realizing how. So, for example, we are on our way home from school or work, and at the bus stop, we see someone collapsing. Our first instinct kicks out. We are rushing to help them, to call an ambulance and provide first aid. As we bend down to help them, they start coughing blood. Suddenly, the blood is spread on our face and hands. Inconvenient, maybe. But did we scratch our hands that day or cut ourselves? Just a little bit, maybe, perhaps. At first, we might not even noticing it, or we might not think much of it. But what's happening next? It means a free entry for the virus. So after this specific event, the next step should be simple. We should visit a diagnostic center as quickly as possible. It's not just the HIV that could have been present in the other person's blood, but what if they had hepatitis or even tuberculosis? There are so many threats in other world we should be aware of. In any case, we go to a diagnostic center, explain what happened, and wait for the tests. Over the following weeks, we will be asked to monitor our health and to seek medical attention immediately if there are any changes in our physical well-being. So the message is clear. A common misconception is that HIV only affects homosexual individuals. So I want to clearly emphasize that viruses and bacteria simply cannot discriminate. If there is something in this whole universe who don't pay attention to gender, race, age, ethnicity, it's virus and bacteria. Perhaps they like someone better, but once a virus enters the body, it does not care about the gender or anything else. To virus, human cells all look the same. So it is important to clearly also distinguish between living with HIV and living with AIDS disease. So for the next demonstration, we have two models on this slide. Two individuals, each facing a different challenge. Who those men are is not important, not their age or anything else. What matters is what's happening inside their bodies. At first glance, they look identical. Based on appearance alone, it would be very hard or very difficult to tell whether either of them is dealing with health issues. However, the reality is different. The man on the left is living with HIV, positive outcome. His infection was diagnosed at very early stage, and as a result, he was able to take immediate steps to prevent the infection from progressing. The man on the right side is experiencing AIDS condition. So living with HIV means that the person carries the virus, but thanks to modern antiretroviral therapy, the immune system can remain strong and protected. People living with HIV who are on effective treatment can lead long, healthy, and fulfilling lives. They can work, can have relationships, do sports, plan their future like anyone else. When treatment is successful and the viral load becomes undetectable, which means the amount of the virus in the body is is really low, the virus cannot be transmitted to others. And also there's some line when we are able to detect the virus and we are not based on the diagnostic tool. But in the end, today, with early diagnosis and proper treatment, most people living with HIV will never develop AIDS at all. AIDS, on the other hand, refers to most advanced stage of HIV infection. It's the stage when the immune system is severely weakened. As you can see in our model, the list of AIDS-related symptoms and conditions can seem almost endless. And this is because on a complete breakdown of the immune system. The immune system, the internal security system of our body. Due to breakdown, it sent basically an effective and open invitation to other infections which surrounding us that would normally have no chance of causing disease. These kind of infections and pathogens, we call them opportunists. And as a result of these opportunistic infections, meaning the infections that would normally have zero chance against our immunity, they take advantage of the weakened immune system, vital organs can be affected. If you can think, this is the only example of severe infections like the influenza virus or hepatitis virus. I have another example for you who is, I would say, the best example of the opportunist. It's a bacteria E. coli. This bacteria is known to be helpful in our body because we can locate it in our gut. But the moment there is some kind of disruption in immunity system, this specific bacteria will take advantage of the current situation, and then later on we can experience some painful gut issues, and we have to go under the treatment. So this is the same thing with the AIDS disease. After the breakdown of the immune system, anyone can attack us. On their own, these infections cannot be life-threatening, not because they are unusually aggressive, but because the body is no longer able to defend itself. So after I explained the life cycle of the virus, a little bit of the history, a little bit of the treatment, and also present the life situation with the virus, I would like to focus more on the existence of existing stigmas in our society. And I think after my speech today, anyone can be able to answer these specific questions. So one of the most common question is if the HIV can only affect the gay people. As I said in the early stage of this webinar, HIV or the virus cannot simply discriminate. So there's no need to target specific group in our society. What about to catch HIV through casual contact? As we see with the Diana example, also highly untruth. Testing positive for HIV is shameful or something to hide. There's nothing shameful in prevention and taking care of our bodies and our system. HIV is a death sentence. This is no longer a truth. After highly efficient therapy, people are able to live a long, happy life, even after being diagnosed with HIV virus. People with HIV look sick. As we see, it's highly untruth to spot a person just by looking at them and to see some symptoms, especially when it comes to asymptomatic individuals. Because the truth is, the HIV virus can show some symptoms in the body, but also can be hidden, also from the owner themselves. So you cannot tell by someone's status or by the appearance if they are infected or not. HIV can be cured with alternative medicine or herbs. Well, even modern medicine cannot fully treat HIV condition, and there's also no cure for HIV from alternative medicines or herbs. If someone would like to use the alternative medicine or herbs, they can maybe help out to feel better during the AIDS condition, but not to treat fully from it. People with HIV are promiscuous or irresponsible. Well, another untruth, because maybe one day you are going to be in a position to help someone in a high risk situation and you can be infected just by your goodwill. You only need to worry about HIV if you use drugs or have multiple partners. HIV can affect anyone exposed to virus. So it can be also, for example, you're gonna perform the first aid or CPR on someone, and the virus can be spread around. Only people in certain countries or regions get HIV. This is also based on the stigma from the past, because it's widely known that HIV is highly spread around the region of West Africa. But this condition is due to lack of modern medicine in those countries. In a countries with heart therapies or right diagnostic tools, is highly unlikely that this can happen. So we are entering our conclusion. So let's reflect on what we've heard today. We've explored forms of HIV condition. And also we've learned a little bit more about the history behind it. Also, we've heard about the optimistic future. Also, we address the common myth and stigma surrounding the HIV, and emphasizing that anyone can be affected and casual contact is safe. We understanding the facts. We understanding why it's very important to test ourselves, but it's completely fine to get the testing. And also, the key takeaway from this webinar should be that HIV is a manageable condition. Treatment is available, and early diagnostic can save a life. So in our society, the knowledge, the compassion, and responsibility should allow us not only to protect ourselves, but also to reduce the fear and stigma surrounding this topic. So I would like to thank you for your participation. And I also truly believe, and the team behind the project, Unity in Diversity, that together we can create more respectful, inclusive, and more importantly, safe spaces. And this mission starting with each of us. So thank you so much.